Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham.
Hi.
And if you're confused, no, that is not Albert Einstein. That is Shotgun Spratling.
Just as smart.
Debatable.
About USC football. How about
Debatable. Everyone asked you to not wear a hat, Shotgun, and you granted their wish.
This is why I wear a hat, guys. You know.
He does have hair, shockingly. A lot of people think you're bald, and that's why you wear hats. No, he has a full
He
head
is
of hair.
certainly not
Sorry.
bald. Oops, whoa, we're just crushing our...
I'm sorry. I was trying to turn you down because your mic is
That's
hot.
okay. Certainly not bald. We got like a Don King look going on over here. I like it.
Can't get a full fro going when the headphones are on. So.
Yeah.
Oh, we're having some mic issues. Okay. Ryan, well, I'm going to toss it to you, Ryan, while
Sure.
I fix that. Because if it looks like we're rushed or at least a little more disorganized than usual, it's because we just got in the studio because we got a we got an exclusive USC beat writers. Got to talk to George Kliavkoff, the new Pac-12 commissioner. It was off the record, so we can't tell you guys any of the fun stuff. But Ryan, you came away impressed by our meeting, right?
I was, yeah. So this was it's kind of a crazy couple of days. We had Pac-12 Media Day yesterday. We can get into some of that stuff. You heard from the USC side, Clay Helton. You heard Kedon Slovis. You heard Drake London. That was great. But we also got to hear at the beginning of the morning George Kliavkoff, and I liked what he had to say. He was making his rounds, and it was a good opportunity to talk to a lot of different media people and such. But for George, we got to meet with him today. So they were doing like a little happy hour that they weren't allowing us to promote at all as far as what's going on. But basically anyone on the USC beat, there was a throwing session, player run practice that was earlier. So we don't get to watch those, but we could see who was there, do some interviews. And then over at Rock and Riley's off at the University Village area, we were going to meet with Mike Bone and also George Kliavkoff, the new Pac-12 commissioner, and get to kind of pick his brain, ask him some questions. And like Keely said, it was an off-the-record thing. We're not going to share any of the intimate details of what was said there. But I did come away very impressed with what he had to say. There's some low-hanging fruit as far as things he can fix. There's a lot of long-term problems that he's going to have to work through. But I couldn't imagine Larry Scott doing anything like that. I talked to the guy for about 10 minutes, just me and him, sipping a beer and talking, some Pac-12 football and stuff. And, he'd asked me about my background. And so, this is stuff that Larry Scott wouldn't do. And to me, when we talk about recruiting all the time, right? Why is Ed Orgeron a great recruiter? Or why is T. Martin a great recruiter? Or Dante Williams? These guys are great, but they're going to listen to you. They're going to talk to you. They're going to engage with you. He was a very engaging guy, and Larry Scott was more of an ivory tower guy. I don't need to talk to you. What was Lynch one like? He was like an ivory tower guy. Pat Haight, this was someone that was going to come out and talk with the people. He's doing a listening tour. He's going to every campus and going to listen to their reporters and their administration and everyone that's working there and see what they have to say. Larry Scott wouldn't talk to the athletic directors. He only would talk with the presidents until the last couple of years. So I came away very impressed. There was just a lot of big problems with Larry Scott, and George Kliavkoff seems to identify them all and go, I can fix all of these. These are pretty easy. So I liked it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the word ego. He doesn't have this giant ego that he can't identify what he even classified as easy wins. There's small things that you can do anytime you take over a new job. What was the guy before you struggling with? Are there some quick fixes to those things? This is a quick fix. This is not going to answer conference realignment, NIL, any of those big picture questions. What are they going to do with the TV deal? All those type things. But this is so easy to do, to go out and see, and you're going to pick up things, from the beat writers, from the ADs. He had a meeting with the SIDs a couple days ago as well. So picking everyone's brain at different level rather than just the president's. Okay, these are the people that actually pay my salary. That's what really matters. That's the only people I care about.
Right.
Is there a whole, branches of this organization underneath that? Yes. Do I care about
the boots on
them?
the ground people that actually do the work and everything?
Do I care about those people at all? Larry Scott was like, they don't matter to me. They don't matter to me. It is my $5 million check in the bank. That's all that matters. So I think Kliavkoff has done a great job, and I think you pointed out, similar to Mike Bohn when he came in, said, hey, the person before me was struggling with some things. Let me try to figure out some easy wins. Let me identify what the issues are. That's what the whole listening tour is about. And this is the same thing that Mike Bohn did. He said, I'm going to, first I'm going to go and listen, then, before I'm making changes.
That's a really good parallel. But hold on, Mike, if you're watching this, I need a little cut right here because I got to do a little rant on this whole thing because there are parallels there. And Shotgun's exactly right. He pointed out something I didn't even think about. When Mike Bohn came in, he took over a great institution that had horrible leadership for a very long time. And he needed to come in. There was going to be some long-term fixes. There was going to be some things that took a while to fix, but there was also going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit, some easy wins, and go through there. And if you're Mike Bohn, you're like, hey, let's let the Song Girls back into the Galen Center to watch the basketball games. And, instead of scheduling an FCS school for the first time in history, let's get San Jose State on the schedule instead. There were some singles we talked about that he could hit and win over the fans. Now, there's a big one, and according to what we've been told, it's there's a long-term financial issue if you wanted to make a head coaching change at the time he came in. So there's similar things to what George Kliavkoff has to do. He identified like 5 or 6 things. They're like, there's some big things that you're going to have to address. And, we know a lot of the stuff in the Pac-12, the distribution deals with the Pac-12 network, the television contract that's really ran out of steam. And it was good in the first couple of years, but it's been terrible since. And it's really long. It's 12 years long. Those are things he can't fix until 2024. But Larry Scott screwed up enough things that he can go through and, I can fix that. And that should be easy. Like, do we need to spend $8 million a year on rent for our conference offices? Like, no, I'll fix that. Now, it might not fix for a couple of years, but there's things he could come in and identify, like, that's an easy fix. We can do that. Talk to the athletic directors. I can do that. We can, so there are really similar parallels between Mike Bohn coming in. When you take over for terrible leadership, there's some good things because you can get those easy wins, but there's also some bad things because things are pretty screwed up and you're going to take a long time to fix them. And both of them, and that was a good point you had, both came in and said, I want to listen first. I want to hear because you've known there's been so many problems in this organization at USC and at the Pac-12. Let's listen to what people have to say. And I think it's good. He's impressed me so far, just like kind of Mike Bohn did when he came in. So I'm happy. I think the Pac-12 got some good leadership here and they need it right now.
When there's so many issues, when there's a lot of issues, people are going to come up with solutions on their own, whether it be one of us, an athletic director, an SID, someone says, what if you just did this? And some of those are just so easy.
Yeah.
Just make a little change. And those are the type of things that both Bohn and Kliavkoff are going to find out on their listening tours. And I think you saw Bohn address some of those, whether it be the FCS game or some of the small things. And I think that Kliavkoff will learn some of those things, and he'll get to hear from both sides of the spectrum. From USC, who needs to be the powerhouse in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 needs USC to be a powerhouse. What will help them? But also from the other end, the Oregon State and Washington State, what do they need to be more competitive with the big market teams when they're in a small market? So I think instead of just listening to the people that pay that sign your paycheck, if you listen to everyone, you're going to find out a lot more information.
Overall, I know it's very early, but how do you feel about George Kliavkoff being in control of this conference?
Yeah, no, I feel good. The good thing about Pac-12 Media Day, one of the good things is, we got to, bump elbows with a lot of people that are covering different beats. So, I talked to the Michael Lev, who used to cover USC, covers Arizona now, anyone out there on the beat. I talked to the guys from Washington, from Utah, Oregon State, anyone that's out there on the beat, you can go through like, I've interacted with you before, but also national media guys like Stuart Mandel was there and Dennis Dodd was there and Bruce Feldman was there. And there's guys there that have a more national perspective. And everyone was talking about the same stuff. Like coaches, national media guys, the beat writers that cover these separate teams. Everyone was talking about conference realignment and what's going on. Nobody really knows exactly what's going on. Everyone has different opinions, but everyone that I had talked to about this just had good things to say about George Kliavkoff. He's someone that seems to have a good vision. He's sort of thinking ahead. Sometimes you feel like guys are doing things for their own benefit, like Larry Scott would do. He's a guy who's playing chess, and he's not going to tell you the third or fourth move he's making out there, but you feel like they're doing that. And he's had to pivot already. I mean, a half an hour before he gave his speech on Tuesday morning at Pac-12 Media Day, Texas and Oklahoma officially announced that they want to join the SEC. He's had to change a lot already just in his first month on the job. So he's got to be nimble. And same thing with Mike Bohn takes over this huge mess and a pandemic gets slapped in his lap. And so that screws up a lot of things too. George Kliavkoff takes over. He's got, okay, here's my plan for everything. Oh, by the way, the college football landscape is completely changing because Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. So, yeah, there's another similarity between those two guys.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he's on the right track so far, and he's making positive moves. Ultimately, in 15, 20 years, he'll be judged on TV contract, realignment, all those big things.
Yeah.
But he's taking the right strides and the steps right now to at least get the information, to make a more informed decision. And that's what it felt like Larry Scott never did. He didn't care about the little people. He didn't care about the $100 donors that were showing up at games. He only cared about the big boosters that were whose names were on stadiums. He only cared about the presidents whose names were on the front of the seal or whatever for the schools. He didn't care about everyone else there. And I think that's the big thing at Kliavkoff, coming from a different kind of perspective, kind of learning everything there as well. I think it's really interesting and really neat the way he's going about it. And I think it's much more beneficial for the conference as a whole, the moves he's making so far. Now, again, we'll see where 15, 20 years may be completely different looking back,
Right.
but so far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, like Mike Bohn is going to be judged on how the head coach, if he hires a new head coach and all that.
National championships.
And George Kliavkoff is going to be about, what these TV contracts are going to be. But the fact that he took the time, all of us in that room were probably like a rounding error as far as like net worth goes, according to him, but he still took the time to talk to everyone, and he was willing to do that. And that was nothing Larry Scott would have done.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, Shotgun, it's interesting because I know a lot of the knocks on him when his name was first announced was, well, who is he? And he doesn't come from an college athletics background. But do you feel like that could be an asset? I feel like he kind of flexed his muscles a little bit about where he came from and how that might help him going forward.
I mean, it can be an asset if you then go in and find all the information out, which is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Which I think that's why it's so important is that, hey, he didn't come, he wasn't the SEC commissioner or some other conference commissioner. He just came over. I kind of know what I'm doing. Let me make some moves. He's saying it's the ego part of it. It's that he understands what he doesn't know, and he's going to find out that information. Whereas it never seemed like Larry Scott's ego would allow him to do that.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, I'm actually going to go back to our intro screen since we had a little bit of a shaky intro, but we got a lot to talk about today. Pac-12 Media Day, like we mentioned, we got to go in person for the first time since 2019. We got to see coaches and players, got to talk to them like, side conversations, things you can't do on Zoom. We also got to catch up with some reporters, so that was nice. So we'll talk about that. Also, player run practices. I believe we saw our last one today and saw, in quotation marks, we saw the players go in and out of Howard Jones Field. But the reason why it's our last one is because next week, people, fall camp starts August 6th. It's crazy. Football is here. And I was joking with Shotgun earlier. Pac-12 Media Day is kind of the ending of free time and, kind of having a life because that signals fall camp is right around the corner. So we'll get into that. And then as always, you can call us 512-4-TUNNEL. Our intern Micah is standing by. We already have a full queue. A couple questions about George Kliavkoff, so I'm going to go to that next. You can also tweet at us, #TunnelVision, and I'll put your tweet up on the screen. Wherever you're watching, Facebook, YouTube, or Periscope, put your comments and questions. We love hearing from you guys. Apparently, Shotgun, your fro is a fan favorite. People are surprised. So it's shocking the audience, but I understand that for sure.
I'm sorry I couldn't get the full fro out. The headphones don't really allow that to happen right now.
Okay.
So, just the sides and poofed out a little bit. So.
Well, like I mentioned, we do have callers on the line. I'm going to our buddy Coley from Iowa first. Hello, you are live on television.
Hey, Keely, Ryan, Mr. Spratling. Thanks for taking my call. my question is, your new Pac-12 commissioner, George Kliavkoff, said he's going to emphasize revenue-generating sports, i.e. football, basketball. So my question is, of course, Notre Dame, a little parochial school in South Bend, Indiana, has the Shamrock Series about once a year where they give a home game away and travel to a large capacity stadium. And this gives them the opportunity to recruiting and also, of course, sell Shamrock Series jerseys to the Irish faithful. Do you see USC, who is the pinnacle name in the Pac-12, possibly doing something similar, having like a Men of Troy series that would enhance their footprint and raise revenue? Of course, hey, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Coley.
Thanks, Coley. Yeah, he did definitely put an emphasis on the revenue sports. And the thing, and, if you remember a few years ago, I actually had Dan Weber, our beat writer at the time, ask Larry Scott, because it was like Pac-12 championship game, and we were doing a show or something beforehand, so I couldn't talk to Larry Scott, but Dan was going. I'm like, Dan, ask him what's more important, parity or making the playoffs? And Larry Scott said parity, and he had to backpedal from that for the last few years. And George Kliavkoff has come in and is like, we don't want parity, we want championships. And I think that's been a constant message. And you're going to see things that all those little schedule quirks and stuff that would hurt Washington every time before they played Oregon, stuff like that, those aren't going to be happening anymore. So there's going to be an emphasis on the bigger brands, which is good if you're a USC fan, because you're not going to be playing a Friday night road game before Oregon on a Saturday on the road, and they had a bye. Like, you're not going to have stuff like that happening anymore. So that's a positive thing. I don't know if that would make as much sense for USC. I think they're trying to do whatever they can to maximize the home games. Having 9 conference games plus Notre Dame, it doesn't give you a whole lot of options to take one of those away. So I don't know, Coley, if that would make a ton of sense. But if it was, potential revenue generator, he's talked about putting a preseason game like you play in Dallas or Atlanta, in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, like something like that would be great. But I don't know about a series sort of like the Shamrock ones that the Notre Dame guys do. I don't know what you think.
I mean, I think it's much more difficult if you stay at 9 conference games. I think just because you have Notre Dame on the schedule already, that's kind of your gym. Notre Dame has more flexibility, obviously, with their schedule, with having less games, conference games, if you want to call them that, with the ACC. So they have more flexibility to do that. Are they going to look at marquee matchups? I think so. I think that's something that you want to do. And, a big question of, if they have to wait till 2024 for the TV deal, are they going to be too far behind? And maybe there's a way that you do some big-time events in the meantime to try to, create some extra revenue there, some new different things, and maybe that's something to look at. To be determined. I think that Notre Dame can get away with it because they're more of a national brand than pretty much any other program. From the long TV history, you have a long fan base there because of that. So I think it makes it a little bit easier for them to do that, and just the situation they're in with scheduling and conference-wise. Yeah.
Thanks, Coley, for the call. Let's go to our other regular caller from Iowa. It's Dave from Iowa. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hey, Tunnel Vision. First off, I'd like to welcome back Coley to the calling queue. It's always great to hear another person from Iowa.
Nice.
But I got 2 questions. No, you're good. I got 2 questions. So one, when it comes to the preseason all-conference teams, do penalties play a factor? Because I was honestly surprised that Chris Steele got I believe he was named a first team all Pac-12 for the preseason. But just from watching last season, he had almost 3 penalties a game for 4 straight games. It kind of seemed like, but maybe that was just me. So I was just curious. Do penalties play a factor into that?
I don't think that's
and
accurate.
Second,
go ahead, Dave.
What's your second question?
All right. My apologies. I was the ASU game. Probably he just only had 3 penalties. But my other question was, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, do you think the other Big 12 schools are gonna kind of just really encourage the teams to just go out guns blazing against Texas and Oklahoma since they're leaving the conference? I mean, to me, I know I'm just a fan, but as a head coach, I kind of just want to sink that in and be like, if they want to leave, then hey, let's just beat their ass, and then when they go to the SEC, they can really get their ass beat. But maybe that's just me. Love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Let's do that one real quick, Dave. Yeah. Okay. So if you saw the Big 12 and Bob Bosley sent that memo out today,
It evolves every day.
basically like, hey, ESPN, stop messing with our crap. It was go check out the statement that they sent out there, the cease and desist order. Here's how it works. Texas and Oklahoma, their grant of rights deal or whatever it is for the media rights goes until 2025. And there's all these provisions in there. So if you can't leave and everything. And I think it's $80 million per school for them to get out of this. And everyone just assumed like, someone will figure out a way to get out of it. The message I saw today seemed like the Big 12 isn't going to let this happen. And could you imagine if they have to stay there for like the next 4 years, officials making horrible calls against them for the next? I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff everywhere you go. People hate Texas anyway, but man, every stadium you go to, it's going to be it's going to be. I don't want to say bedlam because that's one of the names of but that's that's the Oklahoma Stadium.
It will be bedlam.
But it will be bedlam like every game. I think it's going to be fascinating. Does the Big 12 crumble? Because then, if it does, then they won't have to pay. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on there. So this is going to be like, get your popcorn ready and watch, because it's not going. This is not going to go. They're not going down without a huge fight.
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar when Texas A&M left the Southwest Conference. There's animosity already there with the rivalries with them in Texas. So then when they went to play Texas, I think it was even more so.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be animosity because there's jealousy. When Texas A&M left, why did they want you and not us type of thing. And there's like you said, there's already hate for Texas because they kind of hold themselves at a higher esteem than anyone else. They think they're better than everyone, even though they've won one conference. They've won as many conference championships since Nebraska since like 2001, and Nebraska hasn't been in the conference for like 15 years or something like that. So it's ridiculous. But so there's already animosity, but it's going to be ratcheted up, especially if depending on how things play out. Now, it could work out better for some of these Big 12 teams, and they end up in a bigger monster conference. They get more money, something like that. Sure, that works out better for them, but the fans are still going to be upset.
Yeah.
But if some of them end up in the AAC, even if the AAC becomes more of a power conference, if that's the move, their fans are going to be belligerent at these two teams every single time they play in every single sport. So, yes, I think it's definitely going to be ratcheted up, the animosity towards those two teams.
Yeah.
Well, here's a quote from Ross Dellinger of the Sports Illustrated. He had a quote from a Big 12 source who said, "It is imperative that the 8 of us do not crack and we stay together for the 4 years and hold OU, Texas, and ESPN to the contracts, even if it is uncomfortable."
I love it.
Drama.
That is
and
awesome drama.
The whole thing today is, ESPN could potentially be trying to talk another school into moving out so that buyout either lessens or, dissolves if the entire conference breaks apart. So ESPN's looking at it like, we can make more money if we can get them in quicker type of thing. So I think that's where it is, and it's fascinating that ESPN's getting a cease and desist.
Yeah,
because you think of ESPN, you go, "Oh, that's a journalism," but it's also an entertainment product.
SEC network.
So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the Big 12 basically accused the ESPN of like orchestrating this behind the scenes. This isn't about like, not
necessarily
people
the Texas
talking about
Oklahoma portion, but trying to move someone else out. Like apparently that they have evidence of ESPN reaching out to schools in that conference saying, "Hey, what if you move?"
But even trying to grease the wheels to get Oklahoma and Texas to go to the SEC where they run the network. And so this is definitely get your popcorn, because there's going to be some fun. I mean, this is a conference that's got 2 torpedoes in its side, and it's sinking fast, and it's going to try to do whatever it can, but they can hold on. They got some life preservers. They can hold on and not let Texas and Oklahoma jump overboard. They're going to try to go down with the ship. It'll eventually get off, but how long does it take for them to get off this sinking ship? Yeah, that'll be fun to watch.
Money will play a big part in if it breaks up or anything. What conferences? Hey, if the Pac-12 wants to take some of the teams, which teams do they try to take? How much money do those teams? But don't overestimate or underestimate the pettiness that will be involved in this. That exact statement that Keely read is all about the pettiness. Mm-hmm. If you can force Oklahoma and Texas to pay $80 million, how much money can your school lose to force them to pay $80 million just because you're so pissed at what they're doing? The pettiness in college football, we've kind of lost it a little bit with these conferences getting bigger and bigger. You lose some of the rivalry, all that type of stuff. But never underestimate the pettiness in something like this in college football. It can always come back really quickly, and I think you're going to see a lot of that in this situation.
Yep.
Plus, Texas A&M could be helping their former teammates in the Big 12 because they don't want Texas and Oklahoma to come over. So maybe they're like, "Hey, Bob Mosley, what can we do? We'll help you out. Like, you keep those guys there as long as possible." You know, like there's some funny memes and stuff going on around Texas A&M getting dunked on. But you know, if they can help Texas stay in the Big 12 for like 4 more years, like they'll feel pretty good about themselves.
Hip Hop John had a great comment. He said Texas desperately wants to be accepted.
Yes,
It's like true.
Yeah. But you know, when you mentioned that, like when have they won a conference championship? People say the same thing about USC. That doesn't matter as much as the brand. Like their brand, what they bring, the eyeballs, that it's
money.
They care about that. Yeah, is Iowa State better the last 3 years? Yep. Does it matter? No. Who would you rather pick? You still pick Texas. Like, I want Texas on my team, not Iowa State, even though Iowa State's been better. And people were saying that if I would talk about USC, looking at independence or whatever, like, Oregon's been the team. It doesn't matter. Like, great that you won. If Oregon State won the Pac-12 championship for the next 5 years, they're not going to be as big a brand as USC. So USC can screw up year after year after year, but they're still that brand. Now, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, they keep screwing up. Maybe they won't be that, but they're still that brand right now, just like Texas is that brand. So I know they haven't won a conference championship along, but you know, it's still that.
Texas
it's still,
still
brand.
makes more money every single year than any other program.
Yeah.
Alabama is up there when they're winning and going right, but every single year, regardless of who the head coach is and how they've struggled the last couple of head coaches, they still make the most money. They bring in the most money as far as a football program.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Chris Steele's a really good corner. He had some penalties. Like, I don't know what else to say.
It's
about
a
that,
common mistake that people say about Chris Steele, that he has a ton of penalties.
I mean, he was saying like 3 penalties a game. I was like, no, that's not.
No, he's very physical. He grabs a little bit too much. He's in position all the time. So with Dante Williams another year, I think you're going to see even more improvement from him. He's a low-key All-American candidate because of that. If he can catch some of the passes, because he's been in position and knock some balls down. If he can catch some of them and take some for interceptions, a 6-7 interception season is not out of the question this season for him.
Well, we have one more caller in the queue, so I'm going to clear it. It's Kyle from Pennsylvania. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hey, Kyle.
Good.
What's your question for the team?
I'm wondering, what will it take to get rid of Clay Helton?
Hey, Kyle. Thanks for the question.
I don't think we've ever gotten that before.
I was
Ryan.
going to say the first time this has come up. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that wasn't talked about. It's something that comes up at Pac-12 Media Day between other people that cover other teams and national people. That's like, it's a topic, you know, that's, I don't know. I mean, personally, I think we talked about this at lunch a little bit. People were asking about it. I mean, I think USC needs to win the conference at a minimum for Clay Helton to keep his job. That's just my thoughts on this situation. But I mean, obviously everything's different. They could win every game by a point or crush teams or lose but I feel like you got to win the conference. And USC hasn't one time in the last 12 years or something, like that's or 10 years or something, whatever it is. Like that's inexcusable. They should have won it last year. They didn't. I think this is Clay Helton's time to win the conference. They're picked to win the South again, and I think that's got to be the bar you have to set. Winning the South is not enough, in my personal opinion, but I don't make those calls.
Clinching the South, as Keely reminds me every time I say win.
Clinching.
It's a weird pet peeve.
Ryan and I kind of argued about this at lunch. I don't think winning the conference is enough. I think the eye test has to be there too. You win the conference and the eye test looks good, and you go to a big bowl and you lose. I think you're okay. Make it to the playoff. I think it's almost playoff or bust, because I think if they're looking good and the eye test looks good, then they'll make the playoffs with a conference championship. So the interesting thing to me, you said, a lot of people talked about it from other teams and stuff. Really no questions about the hot seat of Clay Helton. He's been on it so long that no one's asking, like, hey, what's it like being on the hot seat?
Yeah, there wasn't that. So that's a weird thing, which I don't know if is good for Clay Helton, because then you're just sort of
it means he's been on the hot seat that long.
People forget it. But you know what, the one thing that's pretty different? Usually you'd go to these events, and there's a lot of local media there because they've always been held in Los Angeles, Hollywood, wherever. That's in Southern California. Every coach would get some question about USC. Do you remember? Like, they always would be that. That didn't happen this year. They weren't asking Kyle Whittingham about USC. They weren't asking Carl Durrell about USC.
But were they asking about other schools?
No, but over the years, you would always ask about USC. Like, that would be the thing. Like, Kyle Whittingham's talking about Utah, and then someone's going to ask him a USC question.
Sure.
And that didn't happen this year at all. So that's kind of an indication of, like, that's not where USC should be. They should be like, hey, what's going on when you're playing USC?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think because they're not the dominant program that, hey, how do you get to USC's level type of questions, you're not getting those. I think that also we heard a lot of different questions because there's so many new things kind of since the last media day, whether it's vaccinations. That was, a Nick Rolovich 11.5-minute filibuster to start his 25 minutes that he had to speak, which someone made a great point at lunch. I don't remember who said it, but they said, why didn't you just go the full 25 minutes? If you're going to filibuster, go for the whole thing and then get no questions at all. Just, from the vaccinations and that talk, NIL, obviously huge, conference realignment.
Yep.
Coaches were asked about that. So I think there's just a lot of topics that were being asked that push those type of questions to the side a little bit more. Because sometimes you go into media day and it's like, what is there really to ask?
Yeah.
But I feel like
there's so much.
It seems like it's been so long since we've talked to some of these coaches because, we're not jumping on the Zooms post games. But, I always listen at the Coliseum. I go listen to the opposing head coaches interview while the rest of the gang goes into the media room to hear Clay Helton and the two players talk. I listen to the opposing players, opposing coaches until players start coming out. So normally I'm listening and sometimes I'll ask a question or two, but I think it's just such a different time right now from the last time we were in a media day. So I think that may have played a little bit of a factor into it too.
There was a lot of other questions. But now that we're on the topic of media day, I mean, your overall thoughts, it was a blitz. It's one day. Sometimes in the past it was two, but it's one day, and they made sure to keep USC last so everyone would stick around. But overall thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so there's different things you look forward to. First of all, we haven't got to see a lot of these people, not just the coaches and the players, but also the national media members, the beat writers from other people that cover other programs that you get to know over the years. So that was nice to kind of be back in the same area and check that. I thought they did a good job hosting it at the W. There's certain things you look forward to. Like, it would always be nice to, like, if you're at lunch, you sit down and, have lunch with an interesting coach. If it's like Mike Leach, you want to hear him talk about Civil War generals or whatever it was, and
Pirates.
Yeah, pirates and things like that. I wanted to sit down with Nick Rolovich because he's got a great personality and stuff. And because of the whole, he didn't show up, he didn't come because he wasn't vaccinated. But then when he spoke on Zoom and he just had his head down, the body language was terrible. And like Shotgun said, it was like 11.5-minute filibuster. And it just didn't feel right. Like he didn't say he was anti-vax. He said that, he encourages people to go out and explore, look at the vaccine, but he didn't take it for personal reasons. And it just didn't. He would be one of the greatest personalities to talk to, and we missed out on that because of the whole vaccine thing. But Jedd Fisch, it was cool to ask him ask him some questions. He's a great energetic guy. I mean, I don't know. Overall, it was cool. Like I like what a lot of the coaches kind of had to say. Some of the players had really great personalities, and we were they were both of them together. So overall, I think it was great. George Kliavkoff, I thought, did a really good job in the morning, knowing that news had just broke that the whole college football landscape was going to change. But yeah, overall, I think it was good. Kedon Slovis, Drake London, I think, did a great job. Clay Helton did his Clay Helton thing. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. It was kind of the normal stuff you get from him. But overall, it's always good to kind of hear what these other conference, the other programs in the conference have to say.
Mm-hmm. My takeaways from Pac-12 Media. First, give a lot of credit to Kedon Slovis and Drake London. Kedon Slovis was out of voice by the end of the day.
Yes.
Because USC went last, their last team to go at 3 o'clock. He was trying to answer questions, kept choking up a little bit, and Drake London's like, man, drink some water. He's like taking care of his quarterback on the podium. Credit to those guys going through it. Drake's a little bit more reserved guy. Kedon's getting a lot of questions about his arm and not performing as well last season. Those are not easy questions necessarily to answer, but I thought that they did a really nice job throughout the day. I listened into different interviews as the day progressed. We talked to them. Keely got them on camera. We talked to them a little bit separate. So give those guys credit. It's not an easy day to go through as a player. It's fun. There's some fun things to do, the photo shoots and whatnot that they do. But it's also a rigorous day. I have a photo of Drake London that he's just – you can just see he's kind of his eyes are glazed over just a little bit during the final media session because it was basically 6 straight hours of interviews for those guys. So give them credit. That's my USC takeaway. Like you said, Helton didn't really say anything new, noteworthy, anything. He just kind of held court where he was. Yeah. Other takeaways, Herm Edwards calling it an NCAA review. Yeah, the NCAA review that we're going through, like not an investigation, not, hey, there's a bunch of dirt that had, and receipts, literal receipts that people have piled up to hand to the NCAA, an NCAA review that we're going through right now. We're just not going to talk about it.
He was asked if it was like affect recruiting. No, not at all. It's like, no, it hasn't. Of course it has. Obviously, but okay.
Also from ASU, Chase Lucas, I thought he had a great personality, the defensive back. This is this is his 6th year because he's taking a COVID extra year. He thought about the NFL last year, came back. He's faced some really good wide receivers from USC side as well, but also in practice, Frank Darby, N'Keal Harry, first-round pick, and then the other first-round pick that they just had.
Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, exactly. So he's faced those guys in practice. But he also talked about how he really transformed last year. So it's interesting to hear guys admit that it took him till his 5th year before he really focused on football and realized what he needed to do to be a successful player. I expect a big jump from him this year just because of the way he was talking.
He was a great personality.
Yeah, he was talking about how football is his girlfriend. He's like, I love her. I spend so much time with her. He was fun to listen to and talk to as well. Some of the other players, like great personalities, talking to them. Jedd Fisch, I think he continues to win every offseason battle that he can. Now, when they get to the season, I think they're going to struggle because they just don't have the talent, even though they've done a good job, transfer portal, all those different things. But I think that they still have a talent dearth. But watch out for Arizona in a few years. If he continues to build on it and they can keep the positive vibes that they have, that's the big thing that I noticed being around him is he's kind of bouncy. He's got that positive energy around him, and that is rubbing off the players. That's something that was talked about from the players. So Arizona's a team to watch for in the future, I believe.
They didn't have a lot of media there. It was like Michael Lev at the microphone. I wanted to go ask him something, and I was like, "Hey, Mike, can I jump in?" He's like, "Okay." And then he went to the other mic. There's 2 mics and stuff. It's pretty funny. He had a list of questions. Like, yeah, I guess you're like the only beat writer there or one of them.
Well, Jedd Fisch doesn't really take himself too seriously because part of his opening statement, he was like, "It's kind of fitting that we're going second to last since the media keeps voting us second to last to finish in the conference." So, little jokes there. It was funny.
It was good. It's funny. I asked him about because if you remember Kevin Sumlin. So this is a similar thing to like Larry Scott does all these things that he screws up. And then George Kliavkoff comes in and fixes a bunch of them. Well, Kevin Sumlin, I mean, you couldn't watch practice. You couldn't talk to anybody. And now their camp is completely open. So I was like, and I'm always an advocate for that. I think it's great. When Pete Carroll did it, I think it was really a benefit for the program. And I asked him about it. He's like, I don't see why anyone wouldn't. Like, you want to play in front of people. You want to perform. And it's not like game weeks where you're like giving up secrets. It's like, so he's letting people come. And I think he's doing a lot of things right. I agree with you. I don't think they're going to win this year, but I like what he's doing around there.
And it's tough to keep momentum if you're not winning. But if they can keep the positive energy, I think that's a team to watch for a couple of years. And the last thing in a similar vein is I think Kliavkoff continues to win all the early battles that he can. The easy steps, he's taking those, similar to Fisch. Now similar to Fisch, he's got a tough schedule ahead. Yeah. He doesn't have the same talent that some of the other conferences might have to negotiate with and all the other stuff. But we'll see what he can do down the road as well.
The media poll: USC was picked to win or clinch the South, as you mentioned. Oregon to clinch the North. So a rematch of the 2020 championship without the asterisk. It wouldn't be a Washington gets sick type of game. What do you think of that, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, the problem with the North, I was picking Stanford to finish last. I think they're going to take a big step back. David Shaw was really confident. He had some interesting things to say, but I just don't see that program going in the right direction. We'll see, though. I mean, I think there's outside of Oregon, I don't know. I mean, is it Cal going to jump out there? Is Washington State could be better, but I think Washington's probably going to be number 2, and I think Cal is going to end up being number 3. But we'll see how that trends up. But in the South, I mean, Arizona State would be a trendy pick, but they have one. Their tight end coach is on paid leave. There might be more coaches from this review going. I mean, there's a non-zero possibility that Herm Edwards isn't the coach a month from now. Like if something weird happens and like the investigation comes out, like, hey, you guys knew all about this, we're blowing stuff up. Like, we don't know what the timing of this could be, or this could take 2 years. Like, we just don't know. So there's too much uncertainty for me with ASU, but they do have a lot of talent. And Utah lost a bunch of stuff. The Ty Jordan thing, just terrible. The tragedy there, but they brought in a lot of guys from the transfer portal. It's Kyle Whittingham. They're going to have an amazing front seven. I think it's, he loves this defense. They got some depth in the secondary. I mean, they're going to be very good on the lines. They brought, good guys to transfer in, and they're going to be tough. USC does get Utah at home. So I think it makes sense to go USC, Utah, Arizona State. But I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those two schools won, or even UCLA makes some strides. And Chip Kelly was kind of funny, just his dry, delivery of everything.
Same as always.
Yeah. So, but UCLA is going to be better too. I think it's probably going to be tough for Colorado, even though they did well last year, and USC didn't end up having to play them. And I think Arizona's going to have some troubles. But I kind of feel like that's the order they're going to fish in the South. So I agree with it.
I think UCLA is going to be much better this year. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson takes a step forward. I think they got all the players they want in there. They've had a ton of turnover on that roster since he took over. A lot of guys left the program, whatever. Utah, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to Devin Lloyd at all, the linebacker. That dude is huge as a linebacker. Like, I looked at him and I didn't see his name. I was like, this guy must be a defensive end.
Yeah.
He's huge for one, but he was getting late second, early third round draft grade, so he decided to come back. I think he'll have a monster season this year in the middle of that defense for them. So watch out. Utah, I think they were super young last year on defense, and all those guys got some experience. So now when they get the Muss back, I think that helps them out. Now, winning at USC, that's going to be a really tough task for them, as has been the case throughout that series. But watch out for them. They could be a team, if USC slips up a couple times, maybe they don't win at USC but could still pass over USC to take the South. So I think the South's going to might be one of the tougher years for the South. It doesn't feel like USC is head and shoulders above, or it's USC and one team. I feel like Arizona State has the talent to potentially be there. The big questions, if they didn't have the overhanging black cloud, I
might pick them in the South.
But I just don't. You just usually don't see situations like that where there's something overhanging. You've seen it at USC several times. Unfortunately, you just don't see teams play up to their potential consistently with that happening. There's lulls and in the season, and I think that may happen at Arizona State.
And UCLA's roster has been screwy. Like, Chip Kelly ran a bunch of guys off. But right now, I think he was talking about. It's pretty evened out as far as the classes go. Like, USC's a lot of people are pretty like freshman heavy because of the whole super senior thing. But he feels like there's better distribution now. I think he likes this team. They were better on defense last year. They were better on offense. They ran the ball well. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, if he takes steps forward, they could be a team that wins the South too. So that would be bad news for USC if UCLA was able to do that. But they should be improved too.
To your point about Arizona State, I thought it was really interesting. One of the quotes I heard was the reaction to their last second loss to USC to start this 2020 season. One of them said that there wasn't really a dry eye in the locker room. Everyone was just devastated. And he said that it actually brought the team closer together. And if you remember, they got hit with COVID issues after that. So they had a while to sit on that loss. And he actually
3 weeks. They missed 3 games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he said they had a lot of time to sit and think about the loss and the potential win that they could have had. And so he said that ultimately brought the team closer together. So it's just interesting how that game impacted them, because I hadn't heard their side of that story.
Yeah, that was Chase Lucas as well.
Yeah.
So not only did they lose to USC, they lose the COVID games, and you got to wonder, when you're bringing in random people into your program, I wonder if that has any impact
for recruits. Yeah, I mean,
allegedly. But they then lost, I think, a close game to UCLA or something. And Chase Lucas said after that UCLA game, like, they all knew that, what they had to do. And the last 2 games, I think they played pretty well. And they are trying to carry that momentum. So Arizona State could be a dangerous team there. But him talking about the USC game, I thought was interesting, because Jaden Daniels didn't play 2 years ago, but they had a chance to win on the last drive.
Yeah.
Last season, they had a chance again to win on the last drive after USC gets an onside kick and then converts on 4th down with that ridiculous catch by Drake London, the throw from Kedon Slovis that we all remember, which Drake London brought up when he was asked, what's your favorite route to run? And someone said a seam route, and he's like, yeah, that's probably it. And he's like, you've probably seen it on highlights over and over again, that Arizona State game.
Kedon Slovis is the one that said that. Kedon Slovis said, like, after he said it seam route, he likes it. He goes, well, we saw it 1,000 times on the Arizona State game. So, yeah, it was pretty funny.
There you go.
And Arizona State, they beat Arizona. What was it? Was it like 70-7 or something stupid?
It was a trounce.
It was like that ended the season. Obviously that was like Kevin Sumlin, like kind of like the Rick Neuheisel 50-0. Game. It was something similar to that. So Arizona State was like, okay, we're going to take out all our aggressions of this season on you, poor Arizona, and so just like blew them out. So can they build on that momentum? I don't know. We'll see.
It was interesting going back to USC quotes. I got to talk to Kedon Slovis about, what happened with 2020 Kedon Slovis. And he talked about his arm, the injury. And he was saying it was a mental thing of trying to get more accurate. It's something that he never really struggled with. He was like, I struggled with making poor decisions, but I've never struggled with being accurate and throwing the ball with velocity. So he said he had to put in a lot of work. But Chuck, and you noted this too. It was interesting. He said he felt better in the second half of spring camp. So that progression, that it's still a work in progress, it seems, where he's trying to get back to 2019 Kedon Slovis, but he did say he doesn't want to be 2019 Kedon Slovis. He doesn't want to be 2020 Kedon Slovis. He wants to be 2021 Kedon Slovis, which is probably going to be something better in his mind.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to be freshman year Kedon. He wanted to push forward. He wanted to, accelerate his development and become a new player rather than trying to get back to where he was previously. And he said he felt like he had gotten back to the 2019 level, that second half of the spring. Now he wants to go push forward. And I talked to Drake London one-on-one. He said, I asked him, everyone wants to know, we're going to get Kedon Slovis 2019 or Kedon Slovis 2020? He's like, honestly, I think he's a better version than 2019 right now. So he said he's throwing the ball with more velocity. That's something I asked him as well. He said definitely. He said my hands are stinging after throwing sessions with him as well, which is a positive sign there. And I think it comes down to the offense now. If Kedon Slovis returns to where he was, okay, the offense gets back to 2019. There's still things that can take that offense to a whole nother level, and that starts with the offensive line, the run game, but also, are you going to use those weapons that you have? One of the things Kedon Slovis talked about was that the new guys that have come in, the transfer portal, the freshmen at the wide receiver position, he said, one, they have more depth at the running back position, he feels like, but also at the wide receiver position, he's like, we have a bunch of unique skill sets. Are they going to use those? That's my big question, and I asked it of them, and they said, yeah, I think you'll see some different things, but that ultimately comes down to Graham Harrell. Does he believe in his offense so much that we're just going to stick guys in a certain position and run to grass? Or are we going to say Drake London's a mismatch against anybody? Okay, let's pick out their worst defender and put him on that guy, and let's throw the ball to Drake London. And then now they have to double team that guy. Now suddenly you got Brew McCoy on the other side, 1-on-1 with a 5'10" guy, and you just throw the ball, or Malcolm Epps. There's so many ways you could do it then because of the different skill sets and those new guys bringing extra speed to the Jake Smith, Taj Washington, those guys bringing more speed. We did see Jake Smith at the PRP today as well, so it appears that all the transfers are enrolled. We saw Sierra Wright as well. He was the last freshman we had not seen, so it appears everyone that is incoming, all the incoming players are in-house now for USC.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Kedon Slovis did a lot of interviews, obviously, like you talked about. They mentioned the injury. Like, if you remember when this was going on during the season, and it was like, well, it was windy, or there was wet balls, or there was all these weird excuses.
Dry wind.
The dry. Yeah, I think it was the Arizona game, and I talked to Jason Shear, who covers it. He was like, there was no wind. I was like, oh, okay.
I was there. I was sitting in the presser, like, what? Yeah.
So it's good. They're they were addressing it. They're addressing it now. He, it wasn't like he just told one person. Like, he was saying, like, hey, here's what's going on.
Well, he sort of addressed it prior to spring camp when, he talked about how he went to a quarterbacks coach and he was trying to figure it out. And then I just think it's notable that I think prior to spring camp, they kind of made it seem like, hey, everything's good now. And then now talking to him, he said the second half of spring camp, he sort of feel comfortable. It's like, okay, this is interesting. This is a delayed reaction, if you will. But Chuck, a nice transition with the player run practices. Last one we saw. Any notable thoughts? Ishmael Sopsher, the Alabama defensive tackle transfer, looked like he wasn't dressed out like the rest of the players. He looks like he's still limited. So that is something to watch for, because that nose tackle position, USC probably still figuring out what to do with that with the loss of Marlon Tuipulotu and Jay Tufele, obviously, and Jay Tafoya. So, what, Ryan?
Oh,
sorry.
Brandon Peely being gone,
too.
Yeah,
and Brandon Peely with the Achilles, right. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something. But so... Any other PRP thoughts?
Yeah, it would be great to get him in there, because it's sort of like, everyone USC lost transfer portal or whatever, they were able to kind of replace them. It's almost like a one-for-one thing. But, with Brandon Peely going down with the injury, Jay Toya going across town, you need Softshirt to be able to come in there and play. So we haven't really seen that happen yet. It is funny to watch, when they don't have the jerseys on and the big bodies walk by, you're looking at, and one of the guys that stood out to me is like Josh Follow. And I remember talking to him at a Pac-12, not to him, but at a like NFL scout at Pac-12 Media Day, and he was like, "Man, that Josh Follow guy looks like an NFL tight end." And I was just always thought like, yeah, he could end up being that. And then you see him, you're like, I wonder if they're going to use him this year. I wonder if he's going to get on the field. I wonder if he's going to be healthy. Like, it's sort of like. I don't know. It's not like Christmas, Christmas Eve, but there's all these like presents you're waiting to open, and you're going to want to see what's going to go on in fall camp while the whole team is together and who looks good and who's going to be healthy. It sort of just kind of gets you ready, like Pac-12 Media Day, and everyone's getting ready, like what's going to be going on in fall camp and where are these guys going to be lining up. So I'm just excited for that. Just seeing the guys out there. I wish we could watch them throw, but seeing them walk around, you're like, all right, they look like they're getting ready here.
Yeah, I think that the Southshire is a big question mark. The defensive tackle is the biggest question mark. If you listen to the Family Feud podcast or defensive preview, obviously that's the one thing we harped on over and over. What are you going to do at nose tackle? How are you going to fill in that vacated hole, not only vacated from last season, Jay Tufele and Marlon Tuipulotu, but now vacated from the spring, Jay Toya and Brandon Peely. So big hole there. Got to figure that one out. Got to feel, I'm curious to see if they try to do it personnel-wise or schematically-wise. How are you going to address that? Yep. That's a big question. And seeing Southshire still, not dressed out in the same garb as everyone else, I think that's, still it makes you a little worried for that position even more going in, because we thought that he probably would be back by now. After he missed the spring, thought that he should be ready by fall, but still not there. Wide receivers, I think, look good. Kyle Ford, looks to be getting back in great shape. Brew McCoy wasn't there today, but we've seen him. He's in great shape. You're adding in Malcolm Epps to the tight end / wide receiver. Huge dude. Could be a complete weapon.
Yeah.
And again, we still haven't seen him actually do anything, but as far as on the field. But Taj Washington, I think he just looks fast. I think
he does look fast.
And the numbers he put up and the highlight tape that he has, I expect him to be an impact guy. Does Jake Smith get in that mix? Can Katie Nixon get in that mix? Where's Gary Bryant? A lot of weapons. I think they're more depth than they've had before. So now are the coaches going to follow through with their word from 2 years ago, and we plan to rotate guys? That's a big question mark still.
The interesting thing is Kedon Slovis specifically mentioned Taj Washington and Malcolm Epps. He was like, Malcolm Epps is a beast, and he said that Taj Washington has really been impressing him in throwing sessions. And so, and that was the overall point that we kind of got from Kedon Slovis is, as a starter, he hasn't really had a normal offseason yet. And so he was highlighting the fact that, like, hey, I get to throw with guys. I can, like, not have COVID pods, if you will.
Yeah.
It's been a more normal offseason for him. And I think we're starting to see, at least from what we're hearing, the wide receivers gel a little bit more with Kedon Slovis. And that was something we talked about coming out of spring camp. Okay, there's Drake London. Who else is there to connect with Kedon Slovis? And so it sounds like there's at least new faces or new options coming in. And it sounds like there's some guys standing out already. But that's something definitely to watch for in fall camp.
Yeah, Taj Washington was walking by today, and he just looks fast. He has hair similar to you. His hair is kind of all over. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but when he walked, it was like a glide. I don't know. But yeah, I think he's going to be. But
Kedon Slovis had chain on.
Yeah, Kedon Slovis had some impressive things to say about it. I wish we got to watch him, but it was one of those things you want to watch him when he takes the field. Do you know what his number is off the top of your head? Do you remember?
Taj Washington, I believe 19 is my guess. Okay. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Right. Someone asked a question about Drake Jackson. Does he look more lean? I talked to him today. He's at 240 pounds right now. He told me he wants to be at 250 to 255, and he said he wants it to be muscle. He said the reason why he wants that extra weight is to be armor going forward. So I think that's something he learned from last year, is just the extra bumps and bruises you take on as you lose some weight. Those every play hitting an offensive lineman, you're going to get beat up a little bit more at 240 pounds. He said he's been working on his drops more this offseason. Feels like he's really got the defense down, so he's learning everyone else's spots around him, so he knows what they're doing, so he can better understand what he's supposed to do. So this is the first time we got to see him this offseason, but seeing him back was a positive. So I think we've seen everyone this offseason. I mean, during the PRPs at some point, outside of injured guys like Brandon Peely. I think he's the only one off the top of my head that we haven't seen. We've seen Max Williams, even though he's injured.
Yeah.
He was dressed out and looked like he was ready to go today.
Yeah, that was
weird.
And
I know he's doing some workouts, and he's like 3 months off of an ACL injury.
He's a fighter. Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah.
he's a guy that you root for, and especially after multiple injuries. But he's just the type of kid that's hard not to root for with his work ethic and the way he throws his body around as a younger guy. I mean, as a smaller
guy. He's like that Russian gymnast who had a Achilles surgery and is out there
3
months later. Oh, yikes. Well, let's get into questions.
Sure.
It's almost the top of the hour. I believe we have a question about something that came out in the news today. Reggie Bush. The NCAA came out and said that they're not going to have the NIL rules kind of bring back Reggie Bush's Heisman. I know the Heisman Trust kind of punted to the NCAA, and the NCAA was like, no, we're not doing it. They released a statement that said previous penalties, including those that are several years old, will not be reevaluated or reconsidered based on the recent changes to NIL rules. So Josh had a question for us. He says, so with NCAA coming down on Reggie's Heisman, do you think that this will be overturned by a court?
I don't know about a court, but I think this is one of the things where Mike Bone could talk to, George Kliavkoff's on campus right now. Like, we need to get this fixed. What can we do here? So make some calls to the NCAA. The NCAA doesn't exactly have a lot of cachet right now. The NCAA could use some wins. They're getting crushed in the courts. They did just settle with Todd McNair in that lawsuit. I mean, they didn't settle because they won. They settled because they're giving Todd McNair money. So you could say, like, look, Todd McNair was the star witness in this, and you paid him. So I don't think everything, the way the investigation went down was all copacetic. So I think you could do some back channel stuff with the Todd McNair verdict and all of that, the settlement, and figure out something to do here. We're like, you know what, we're going to reinstate this, and that would allow the Heisman Trust. I guess the Heisman Trust does have some kind of thing that, there's some rule in there with the NCAA or they're following along. But this would be more of a back channel thing than a court thing. So Mike Bone, George Kliavkoff, maybe they can work together on something like this if that's what they want to do.
Honestly, if I was the NCAA, this is exactly what I would have done. No, we're not going back and changing things. Because then you go, okay, well, which ones do you change? Do you change all of them? It just opens up so much. Now, if people want to continue to fight it, and now you have to go to a legal route, then maybe you change your mind. But we're not going to do that. And then see where things go from there. That's what I would have done as the NCAA. I don't think winning, giving Reggie Bush back his Heisman really wins the NCAA any favor there. So besides maybe a couple USC fans, I think USC fans pretty much hate the NCAA as it is for all the sanctions and whatnot, and pretty much everyone hates the NCAA. So I don't see why they would do that.
Gorilla had a question on YouTube for us. He says, who will have the best pass rushers in the Pac-12 this season? Is USC in the top 2?
USC could. Kayvon Thibodeau, who was at Media Day yesterday with 3 rings on, his Rose Bowl, his Pac-12 rings, looking fly, talking about how he's talking to Phil Knight and stuff.
Uncle Phil, he called him.
He got a call. He's like, I got a call. Like, it's Philip Knight. He's like, who's this? It's like, oh, Uncle Phil. Like, it's
casual.
Like, casual. Billionaire calls you. Like, all right, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, he's talking about how he wants to build a school eventually and different things. So he was impressive at Media Day. So I don't know exactly who's going to be on the other side of him, but you better hope that you can block the other 3 guys and have a blocker or 2 or 3 for Kayvon, because he's going to menace off the edge. Drake Jackson, can he get to that same level? That's where people think he could be. That's where you see his name come up as top 5 potential pick, which I think that's a little bit high there, but we'll see what he can do this year. USC could definitely be in the mix. To answer the question, Vic Soto, what we've seen from his group in the past, in the short time that we saw last year, huge improvements and great pressure. And that's going to only help the defensive backs, because they got a lot of young guys that they will try to rotate in, I think, and try to get some playing time. So you're going to help those guys out. But Nick Figueroa is probably the most underrated pass rusher in the Pac-12, if not the nation. I mean, his pressures per rush are outstanding. Hunter Echols really high up there as well as far as pressures. He's got to do a better job getting the quarterback on the ground, getting the hits on the quarterback, but he's getting there and forcing the quarterback off his spot. And then you talk about Drake Jackson and Corey Foreman, the QB killers, as they call themselves, at Corona Centennial. If they can live up to the hype, USC could definitely have one of the best pass rushes, on the West Coast, in the nation, potentially. I don't know if they'll be up there with the Ohio State type of things that we've seen in the past, but could definitely be the best in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Utah always has a good one, but there's no big names there right now.
If you guys have any questions on Facebook or YouTube, just try to put question on, like we were kind of just talking for about an hour, so I'm trying to look through here. I'll
Are
put
you
some
sorting
questions
through the
up.
hair questions, Ryan?
I'm trying. There's a lot of hair comments about that, but if you have questions, I got them up. We can put them up on the screen if you have a question.
I'm really enjoying the comparisons that people are making, like a troll doll that got electrocuted. There's a lot of good ones, so keep them coming. It's entertaining me. We got a question from Walker Lamer who says, does the Tunnel Vision crew sense that Todd Orlando's defense will be strong or questionable this season?
I mean, there's big questions about replacing the big pieces from last year. But I think second year, I think they're going to only go forward. I think what we saw in the spring as far as building the culture of the entire team all stemmed from the defensive staff and stems from that defense and the positive developments we've seen from the pass rushers, but also the defensive backs under Dante Williams. So, with the pieces that they have there on the coaching staff, it feels like everything is moving forward and going to continue to get better. So I think you're going to see a big jump for not a big jump, but a jump for the defense, which is interesting because Todd Orlando's defense has been really good in year one.
Yeah.
When he takes over places and then struggled a little bit more in year two. So let's see if that continues. Sometimes one of the things with his defense, he's bringing pressures from all over the place. If there gets more tape out there and then opposing coaches get a better feel for it, I don't know if they necessarily got that in a 6-game season.
It's weird. It's the opposite. Like, we're supposed to see Graham Harrell, this big jump in year two, but the pandemic sort of kind of put the kibosh on all that. So it might be a year two for Todd Orlando where they didn't get to prep everything and install that culture and everything like that. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see. But I think they're going to be better, too.
If anything, they didn't slow down in spring camp. That's something that we've seen sometimes where they changed course a little bit. They kept the intensity up, and now they have a full offseason, a full fall camp for not only culture building, but for install as well. So I'm very curious what we will see. I believe we have a question from Ulau Ulau. For Ryan, who says, I know you haven't seen much, but what can we expect from the unproven wide receiving core? Who do you expect to be day one starters? I do believe pre-fall camp you gave your omen to Tyler Vaughn's way back then. Are you going to do another one? Are you going to have another boy?
I think I had my, Kyle Ford, we talked about this before, is my boy. We haven't seen much of him with the knee injuries and everything, but, it's hard to have like a crystal ball to know because we haven't seen a lot of these guys. I mean, what you could see with Brew McCoy. There's like Shotgun said, there are a lot of options there and some new guys that, when you see like Joseph Manjack, if you look at it, like Shotgun puts a picture up from him, like he looks like, oh, is that a manager? And like, oh no, he's actually on the football team. And like, man, he's really good. Like people talk about him. Kedon Slovis talked about him. I think there's a lot of options there, and I feel like Taj Washington was someone I was like, I'm not sure. And now I'm like pretty high on him.
Without seeing a snap.
I know, without seeing a snap. Just, the feel you get. And then like I really felt when I heard Katie Nixon, I was like, wow, that's going to be great. And I just didn't pop in the spring. So maybe he does pop in the fall. We'll see. But there's a lot. The good thing is there's a lot of options there. Is it going to be, everyone had these set positions before where you had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Vaughn, and before it was Michael Pittman and Drake London and stuff. Maybe you see more of a rotation. I think we talked about this before. Maybe you do. I don't know, but it's
Believe
hard.
it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things like, is Solon Tuileaupupu going to play? Believe it when I see it. Are they going to rotate a bunch of guys at receiver? I'll believe that when I see it, too.
I think that Brew McCoy and Drake London are almost locks to be starters. The question is 3 to 4, the third and fourth spots. Are you going to try to use Drake London on the inside? Because it sounded like we saw in the spring, and it just felt like Drake London, hey, he's moved to the outside. And then we saw him a little bit in the inside towards the end, and he didn't practice as much towards the end of spring camp. But then talking to him yesterday, it sounded like moving to the outside is not some permanent thing.
Yeah, it was interesting.
It was like, I don't know where I'm going to line up type of thing. So
it was like he didn't want to say.
But then Kedon, when talking about Malcolm Epps, said, hey, that gives us a lot of more options. That gives Drake London a lot of more options. So it was kind of a mixed bag from both of them.
Maybe they rotate around. I don't know.
But the question then is, Drake London's going to be on the field. If he moves inside, then that makes it much more difficult to figure out who's going to be that third receiver, or if he stays inside, I guess is a better way to put it. If he is now on the outside, then that opens up that inside spot to everyone, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because you can go speed, Taj Washington, Gary Bryant, Jake Smith, use a slot, shifty guy, and use one of those smaller guys. Or you can go size again and had 3 big guys across the board, and now you got Malcolm Epps or Michael Trigg comes in there. If Josh Follow steps up, can he be an option? Like there's a ton of options there.
Yeah.
If you just go outside, though, I think it limits. If he stays inside the entire time, that limits the guys that you're going to see on the outside. I just don't think some of those guys are going to be pure outside guys.
There's options. I mean, John Jackson walked by, and I was like, oh, he's looking good. Like, I mean, there's, who knows? But I think there's a lot more options there. We don't have the proven commodities that you've had in years past.
Yeah, and then speaking of speed, when talking to Drake London, I was saying, what are you expecting from Taj Washington and Jake Smith? And he said, I expect them to take the top off of defenses. Is that something we will see USC do or utilize?
They haven't, right? When's the last time that happened?
I mean, they throw the deep ball. Let's not say that they don't ever throw the fade or throw the ball deep to guys. Amon-Ra St. Brown, ton of catches, the deep post and stuff like that. But there's the other ability of taking a fast guy and just running the defense further to open up more space inside. And if you don't cover that guy, we're throwing it to him for a touchdown. And
but like
it just
Bayless
opens so
Jones,
much more.
It just didn't ever happen.
Never used it.
Yeah, it was just weird.
Yep.
Like it just didn't work. And will it work for these guys? It's not just about having a speed guy, but it's got to work in the system. And I don't know. We just haven't seen it yet, really.
Yep. Ryan, I think you and I both saw this question on Facebook. Harry on Facebook said, when is USC going to get a fullback? And then he commented after it and said, nothing else matters.
Oh, here, I can put that one up real quick.
It's okay. We don't
so
have to.
what time is it? It's 9:06 here on the West Coast. Well, yeah, never. Like, it's not going to happen again. Maybe years from now, but it's certainly not in the offense.
Not in this offense, for sure.
Yeah, the way that the offense is going right now, no. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's just not. I mean, look around. Where does Alabama have a fullback right now? Like, you see that? Did LSU have a fullback when they scored 60 points a game or whatever the hell it was? No, I mean, it's just not. That's not the direction college football is going. So I'm sorry, Harry, but that's no.
So much snark, Ryan.
I'm
It's okay. They're
just
asking
saying.
questions.
I know. I'm just trying to be realistic. It's just we've gone over this a million times.
Mark Watkins on YouTube says, do you believe that Kedon Slovis' arm is really fixed like he says, or will we see more issues next season?
I mean, he sounded the part.
Yeah.
I got to see it to believe it. Another one of those. But confidence begets confidence, I think. And I think confidence in his arm and feeling more confident in the way he's throwing the ball and being back to where he was and trying to build on that, I think it was evident in the way he was speaking. There wasn't any hesitancy in the way he was speaking. And Kedon's not the hardest person to read as far as his emotions on things, like some people may be. So you can tell how he's feeling and the way he answers questions. And I think that, he had the confidence yesterday. He had the hair. He had the coif going.
His hair was on. It
He
was
looked like a
good-looking hair.
70s skater, in my opinion.
70s. How many 70s skaters have you ever
He looked
seen?
like he just signed with like LeBron James's agency. It's like
Well, oh, yeah.
It's
Okay.
almost like that might have happened.
But yes, I got 70s vibes. That's all.
When we've heard from him before, I feel like he was 100% honest about what was going on there. Like you talk to people and stuff, I just felt like this is what has happened. Like, hey man, it didn't feel right. I was like a little hesitant, and I think everything he said made sense. I don't think there's things you would want to lie about. If he was lying about it, he's like, no, I'm totally healthy and whatever. I feel like he was honest with what's going on and feels a lot better about where his arm is right now.
We had a question from Crenshaw Grinder on YouTube who said, when does the Pac-12 television contract with Fox end?
2024
Yeah.
is the big one. So, yeah.
That's when their rights basically open up again and can be free market. Now, they could potentially try to get out earlier than that, but then that limits, the free market ability of them going out and getting everyone. Like there's certain games that open up. I think that they can get out earlier, but 2024 is when it's free.
Yeah, for the Pac-12 network. Pac-12 network, and for the Tier 1 rights deal with Fox and ESPN. He did mention during Pac-12 Media Day that they are uniquely positioned because they own all of their rights. They own the Pac-12 network. It's something that the Pac-12 network basically can't get fixed until then either. They're all the distribution deals. He likes the content on the network, but it's the distribution that's the issue. So, and that's a big deal because you don't get it in DirecTV, which is huge here in Southern California. I mean, I got YouTube TV, don't get it there. Yeah, it's a problem.
I mean, I've watched so much Olympics right now. that I would love to see stuff like water polo and some of those Olympic sports that if their stories are told really well right now when it's on during the Olympics, then I think would carry over because there's so many athletes from USC that are in the Olympics right now. 66 athletes, more than a ton of countries have USC ties. So I would love to see there be a distribution portion from the Pac-12 network with the Olympics channel or something like that, where you're getting these sports to the eyeballs that want to see that. People that have the Olympics channel, they want to see those type of sports. People that have the Pac-12 network and just are USC fans, are they really interested in that Oregon State versus Washington State water polo match? I don't think either one of those teams actually has a water polo program. But still, I don't think that there's any interest there. Whereas someone who's an Olympics fan, Olympic sport fan, and has that channel, maybe, if there's a big-time player or something on one of those squads, they are interested.
Yeah.
Get those type of, that's one of the distribution things they could do. Split it up a little bit instead of the Pac-12 having all their rights outside of football and basketball, having all the games.
They were focused on the numbers of how many live events they have. And they do way more than all the other conferences, but they just don't get ratings, and I feel like you can do it in a better way. I know you would talk about there'd be like a baseball game between like Oregon State's number 1 and like Stanford's number 4, and they're showing like, Washington State and Arizona.
A replay of women's volleyball from 2 weeks prior. If there's a live event where they need to have more flexibility.
Yes.
That's one of the issues with the Pac-12 network is they set the schedule.
It's like walk away.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, and like, okay, hopefully that works out, and then don't ever move it.
The Pac-12 has had the number 1 baseball pick like 3 of the last 5 years or something like that. Like, you need to be spotlighting those players, like saying, hey, in a couple of years you're going to see this guy in the big leagues. You're going to be seeing Adley Rutschman. You're going to be seeing Spencer Torkelson. These guys that are big-time prospects that are going forward. You're going to be seeing Garrett Cole, those type of players that came from the Pac-12 that aren't being spotlighted, I think, in the way they could be. That's one of the small things the Pac-12 network could be doing that they're not doing really well.
Yeah.
We had a question on YouTube from Ulau who says, Shotgun, what do you believe the spread offense favors? A body type like Brew McCoy or Gary Bryant?
The thing is, you see more of the small receivers, you see more of those slot receivers, but you can have big-time receivers that go up and make it. The biggest thing is, hey, can you be shifty and find that open grass? That's the big question mark. Well, hey, you need to be able to throw the ball up, and if you practice the repetition, you remember Graham Harrell talking about, how they would throw the same ball. He would throw the same pass to Michael Crabtree the entire practice. That would be one practice, is throwing the fade ball to Michael Crabtree. Kedon Slovis throwing the ball to Brew McCoy, that still works really well. You throw it and you put it in the right spot, he's going to go up and get it, a ton of the times out of 100. So I think that you can still have big receivers, and you're seeing how well the body type of Drake London has worked in the slot for USC. So I don't think it necessarily favors one or the other. We've seen a lot more of those small, shifty receivers be able to come out of that offense and make it to the NFL. Rather than a pro style where you usually have 2 wide receivers, just because you see more of those small receivers on the field, they can kind of get lost a little bit in the traffic. So I think they've had more success in that type of offense because of that. But I don't think it necessarily favors one or the other.
We actually have a late caller, so I'm going to go to him. I believe it's Adrian. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hey, what's up, guys? Big fan of the podcast. I just wanted to ask, I've listened to it, but I just need to know. I need confirmation from you guys. Is Robert Steiner finally the guy? I keep thinking to myself, ever since that Cotton Bowl against Ohio State, we've looked small. We don't look big. Is this the guy that's finally going to put some beef on these boys? You guys been here 3-4 years. They sometimes look the same, and it gets frustrating. It's like, are we not giving them enough muscle milk? Are we not giving them enough food? What are we doing? Is Robert Steiner the guy that's going to get us back to looking physically dominating?
Thanks, Adrian.
Yeah, I
like the color, too.
From the players talking to him, they seem pretty high on whatever he's been able to do for them. Bodies look good from what we've seen him walking by the PRPs, and we saw in the spring. I would say, I would say Robert Steiner's a buy right now. I think he's on the upswing. So we'll see what the proof's in the pudding. But I feel pretty good about USC strength and conditioning program right now.
I don't see a bunch of guys that are first guy off the bus type of guys just because of, they've made these huge improvements. But listening to the players, and take their word for what you will, it's all about functional strength. And you're hearing even Kedon Slovis talk about the functional strength training and exercises that they're doing to help his arm. and listening to the players talk about the different things that they're doing and the unique things. Drake London said that I think he told Keely that they'll create stuff out of wood for extra exercises.
Because he said, like, that man has stuff up his sleeve, and I was like, well, what specifically does he have up his sleeve? And he's like, they'll make things out of wood, and we trust him enough that we'll be like, okay, we'll do this rep. Like, it's intense for them.
They're carrying their teammates on their back, literally, and maybe that's a figurative thing that they want to work, but like picking them up, carrying them in their arms and different things. Body weight exercises. There's different things there. I think the year off really hurt them. I think that really hurt the strength and conditioning. Aaron Osmus, it was all about lifting heavy or eating heavy. What is it?
Lifting heavy, eating thick.
Yeah, there we go. And I think that has its place. However, I think he was very handicapped by the fact that kids were training in their garages. How much is a strength coach able to do when your players are out training in their garages? One, some people need to be motivated with someone yelling at them, being right there on top of them the whole time, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I did 15 reps, coach," when they did 12, or whatever it may be. So I think they're back. They're in they're building the culture of the team there too, and all signs so far are positive. Again, that's we don't really know until they try to push around San Jose State and whether they go forward or backwards.
Yeah, and I think with Aaron Osmus, it's just. Sometimes it's just you're not in the right place at the right time, and things just don't work out. Like he wasn't going to be a good pandemic strength coach because he's more about weight room lifting stuff. If you're a body weight guy, and Robert Steiner has a whole bunch of body weight exercise. I remember asking Aaron Osmus about body weight exercise. He looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" Like, no. Robert Steiner he does a lot of that stuff. So if he was in the pandemic, he could do that because he could have everyone do stuff at home, and that's not really the program that Aaron Osmus put together. So our buddy Michael Castillo is better suited for the pandemic than me. He likes being an introvert and staying at home. I like to go out everywhere. So he was better suited to handle the pandemic than I was. And I think Robert Steiner would be more than Aaron Osmus.
Honestly, of the last three strength coaches, has been very different approaches for each one of them.
Yeah.
I would say I would favor Bobby Steiner and the boys approach over the other two.
Yeah, there's different philosophies.
Ivan Lewis was very focused on flexibility and stretching and all that type. Aaron Osmus was kind of the exact opposite. Just power lifts, and now it seems more functional stuff. I think that is the best suited way for a football team, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the notable things for me when talking to guys about the new strength and conditioning, a lot of guys keep saying that they've lost a lot of body weight. I talked to Cortland.
Body fat.
Body fat. Thank you. I talked
You're
to
gonna make people freak out.
I know. I'm sorry. They're not skinny models now. I promise they're not. Body fat. I talked to Cortland Ford today, and he said he lost 8% of body fat. I believe Brett Nealon said the same percentage amount as well, either 8% or 6%. But a lot of guys, especially in the trenches, are losing body fat. And then the other thing I wanted to note too is that it seems like this administration at least understands the importance of strength and conditioning and nutrition, and that's something where I've heard nutrition was lacking a lot for USC lately, and so that's something that they've been trying to sort out there. But of course, the pandemic threw a wrench into those things. But they at least understand the importance of that, and that how both of those programs can set the tone for your football team. So at least it's known, and they are trying to remedy those issues.
Yeah.
So let's go into rapid fire, I believe.
Yeah, let's do rapid fire. There's one up there on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Walker Lamer said Vavai Malapaya is back, and so is Keenan Christen. Can Tunnel Vision get Mike Jinks on to talk about the running game?
We'd love to talk to Mike Jinks, and we can do that in fall camp. Probably not as a guest. During the season, I think it's harder to get coaches. We'll try to do that more of an off-season thing. I don't know. I don't remember if we had Mike Jinks on before, but I did a bunch of one-on-ones with guys, and it was definitely a lot of fun. We'd love to get him back on, but we'll talk to him about the run game because there's more of the guys than that. I mean, out there, it's Kedon Slovis was talking about the
Kedon Slovis mentioned Keontae Ingram multiple times yesterday in different contexts. So I think that tells you a little bit about what he thinks of him and where Keontae is in that running back competition. I think he's 1 or 2 right now and vying for 1. So I think we've had a lot of questions about who's going to be 1A, 1B because that's what they said they want. And I think right now it's Vi and Keontae. We'll see if anyone else can catch up. Walker also asked if you can get Mike Bono on Tunnel Vision so we can get to ask about the State of the Union for the Trojan Nation.
We've had him on the podcast. I mean, he sort of dropped the bomb on the. What did we break? We broke. We broke.
The
San Jose State game, right? Yeah, we broke that, and then and he also talked about. everything was on the table. So we'll like to have him on again. We got to talk to him earlier today, and he's a very accessible
very
person. So
media friendly.
Yeah.
I think we answered this either last week or 2 weeks ago, but Oscar wanted to know, can you guys pick a surprise player on each side of the ball in 2021?
And when we did answer it, Keely was like, "That's not a surprise. That's not a surprise."
Okay,
That's
I'm not
a surprise.
as critical today. How about
They're
that?
on the roster. That's not a surprise.
Yeah.
The phrasing was different for the other question.
Taj Washington's, I believe, the guy that I mentioned on the offensive side. I think that I mean, he's a freshman All-American, so how much of a surprise is that? But he's new to the Trojan fans. I think that's a possibility there.
Keely's mad at you already.
You just did it to yourself. It's fine. Don't worry.
Freshman All-American at Memphis. Like, it's not like.
Okay, I'm just saying.
It's the AAC. That's not a real conference. Don't you remember that? Tell the Big 12 that.
Yeah.
The other one I think Ryan mentioned was Cortland Ford.
Yeah.
So, and Keely poo-pooed that as well. You know, a guy that's played one game. You can't be a surprise, apparently.
Sorry. Well,
Yeah.
because he got most of the reps in spring camp.
I know.
So?
It could be like a Jonah Monheim, who I was going to talk to today, but I decided to talk to George Kleofkoff instead.
Hey, Matt Fink and
he-
Jack Sears got most of the reps the season before JT came in the fall.
This
True.
is not a question to pick a bone with me, Shotgun, but thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, and I don't know, would you someone like Keontae Ingram count? Because when I watched him in spring, I was like, if you didn't just saw numbers, you're like, he looks like the starter. Like, I mean, I think he can come in and do a lot of good things for you. So I think I think him and Vavai are going to be like the number 1 and 2 guys. So
The transfer group as a whole I've been very impressed with. I think they identified specific positions they needed to address with Talanoa Hufanga being gone, with Jay Tefele being gone, with some of the weapons on the offensive side being gone, and they went out and got some big pieces that I think will be able to play right away. My surprise on the defensive side, I think ITS is a guy that's ready to take his game to a whole nother level. I was impressed with him in the spring. I think he takes over that other cornerback spot opposite of Chris Steele and could have a really, really strong season. I think with Dante kind of on him all the time, but he trusts Dante wholly. I think he has a chance to really take a big leap in his game. I think that will surprise people how far along he is versus where he may have been the last couple seasons.
We got a question from Coley White, who, if you're new to the show, he is our resident Notre Dame fan. He says, USC hated foe UCLA plays LSU in their second game of the season. Do you think they have a chance? And what will a win mean? He thinks it's good for the Pac-12.
That's huge for the Pac-12. This is one of the big Pac-12 games for sure, and it's at home. It's not like Michigan playing, Washington playing at Michigan or Oregon playing at Ohio State.
Right.
This is a home game. Chip Kelly was asked about his out-of-conference record at UCLA, which is 0-6. He hasn't won an out-of-conference game yet, but he's got Hawaii and then LSU in week 2. So it'll be LSU's first game. They have to come on the road. They beat some good teams last year, and they still were like a 5-5 kind of team. So this is a huge game for the Pac-12 all around. So yeah, you want Chip Kelly and UCLA to potentially notch their second out-of-conference win in Chip Kelly's tenure.
As of now, I'm picking UCLA.
Wow. All right.
He did last week.
Yeah.
I mean, will it be notable or as notable since LSU is kind of on a downtrend?
Oh, I mean, they beat Florida. Like, they beat good teams. Like, they're still really talented. I mean, they're just they lost a ton of talent from that uber talented team they had in 2019. So
yeah, when you lose that many draft picks, you're gonna take a big step back.
Yeah.
Unless you're Alabama.
That was about to say. That's what's been
Reload.
so impressive about Alabama is even when they lose a number of guys, they have guys that decide not to go in the draft, and those guys become the big-time stars the next season. So that's why Nick Saban has this run of, 12 years now? Some ridiculous run with Alabama right now.
Mark Watkins wanted to know any players expected to miss the start of fall camp. So Clay Helton said that they're doing pretty well injury-wise. He did say that there's some soft tissue injuries, but he said it's pretty healthy as a team as a whole. I believe we won't see Ishmael Sopsher full go. That's just something where it doesn't look like he is right now for PRP, so you can't fully expect that now. And then I believe Jordan Isefa is still waiting for clearance on that knee. And I don't know if we know the status of Solomon Tuilapupu right now.
He's been in cleats every time we've seen him at practice.
Yeah.
So that's a positive sign, but again, full week of practice before we get there.
Yeah,
Yep.
Depth is really good, and injury situation is good right now. So we'll see what they look like come August 6th.
All the guys that we saw leave in the spring, outside of the 2 season-ending injuries, Brandon Peely and Max Williams, all the Gary Bryants, the Michael Jacksons, all those type of players we've seen, with their catapults on, sweating coming off the practices, all the things that would lead you to believe that they actually
doing stuff,
are
yeah.
participating in the PRPs, though we can't see to completely confirm. All those type of players have been back. Elijah Winston and Ethan Ray and Jude Wolfe, some of those guys that missed the 2020 season or missed the end of the season, those guys are back as well. Greg Johnson.
Yeah.
So right now, USC looks healthy. Now, where are they going to be 2 weeks into fall camp? Are we going to see 25 people on Rehab Island? I don't know why we can't expect that, because that's been the case for a half decade. But there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they're going in with a bunch of guys that are already banged up.
And Kobe Pepe is another guy who was in and out of spring with that shoulder injury, and he told me he's 100%. So that's another guy who came back. I'm going to wrap up the show here.
Okay.
Like I said, fall camp, next Friday. We're back, people. It is crazy. Football's back, technically. That's the more important thing. Any final thoughts before we really go into fall camp?
Thanks for joining us on the later show. Like we said,
Yeah.
we had to come here late. We came, literally just ran in the
Like
office.
5 minutes before
I had
the
the show
started.
all set up, so hopefully it was going to work out okay. But season we'll probably be doing 2 days a week. We'll figure out what the schedule. It might be more of a Thursday thing because we won't be going to practice on Thursdays and stuff. So we'll kind of figure that out going forward. But thanks for sticking with us. I know we had a little break there for a while, but we'll be back doing these regular shows. They're a lot of fun to do. We enjoy them, and we enjoy all you guys, all the questions and everything. So thanks for that. Well, maybe we get some special guests. I don't know. We tried today a little bit down there on campus. We'll see what we can do.
Shotgun, thoughts?
I think the most intriguing thing going into the fall is Kedon Slovis and where he's at. You know, that's the big question. 2019 Kedon Slovis, 2020 Kedon Slovis. Brian McCall asked several questions about Kedon Slovis. Is it mental? Is it physical? What was it? It was mental, stemming from a physical injury.
Yeah.
Watch my interview with him on this channel, by the way.
So check that out. But he seems to be confident. Quarterback is a position where you need your confidence. Now, the offensive line has to block in front of him. We know that. That's a big question mark. That's a big question mark going in. But that's what I'm hopeful for USC is that he's back, because we want to see players at their peak. And I think he has a chance to get to that this season. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he looks at the beginning of fall camp and seeing if all the confidence he displayed yesterday, if that holds up and is true.
Mm-hmm. Truck Ranger says, love you guys, even Shotgun's hair. Look at that, Shotgun. Winning the people over with your luscious hair.
There was a good one. There was you look like a young Bob Ross.
A lot of Bob Ross.
The painter guy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
the
no
puffy little clouds.
I have no artistic skills at all.
Well, at least you
that
look
hair
like
is
him.
pretty artistic.
I can break down film a lot better than I can draw stick figures.
It was hard to find the questions because there was too many.
So much. It was
Shotgun
the
hair
hot
comments.
topic of tonight, Shotgun's hair.
So
People
this
would
is,
tune in later.
This
like,
is
oh my
why
God.
I
Yeah.
wear a hat, and this may be the end of this hair, this pandemic hair that I have.
Are you getting a haircut?
Well, we'll see.
We'll
Maybe
see.
before fall camp.
Maybe that's the biggest question mark heading into fall camp. Will Shotgun
will
have
Shotgun's
a
hair look
haircut? Alrighty, that's gonna wrap up today's show. Thanks so much for watching. That's Ryan. That's Shotgun. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.
See ya.